Hi, I'm Laura Brueckner, dramaturg with the 2020 Bay Area Playwrights Festival.
Hey, I'm Noelle Viñas. I'm one of the playwrights in the Bay Area Playwrights Festival.
Hi, I'm Isabella Benning, and I'm the marketing intern for the 2020 Bay Area Playwrights Festival.
And we have come together to talk about Noelle's play, Derecho. So, Noelle, in your play, we meet Eugenia, who's an American-born Uruguayan woman who is running for political office for the first time. What inspired you to tell her story originally, and have current events since then influenced your focus since then?
So for me, I'm Uruguayan American, so there's that. Like, there's the first point of intersection. It's very personal. I started writing this play when I was in college and kind of outside of my first experience of home, and kind of grappling with Latinidad and what that meant. And so I think at the time I had a lot of questions and also like ideas about how often Latinos are kind of perceived as this monolith to kind of the dominant like white American culture, and was also often pushing up against that. So that's kind of where Eugenia first was born out of. And she wasn't originally running for office. She was just kind of hosting a meal with a lot of the other Latinos in her community. Then when I started kind of really fleshing out the play in 2018 and it became a full draft instead of like these pages I'd written, I was working with the director Nicolas C. Avila, who is directing in the festival this year. And we were talking about kind of reasons. There were reasons for the people to be there, but because it was 2018 and the election had just, well, I guess it not just happened, but it still felt very recent. We were thinking about all the different women of color running for office, and it felt like a really grounding moment to be kind of talking about a lot of the ways that identity plays out in a public space versus a private space, which is a lot of what the play itself is about.
Being both from Springfield, Virginia and Montevideo, Uruguay, how do you think these two unique places influence you as a writer?
It's interesting because Montevideo is definitely like it's a city that is a city. Uruguay is such a small country, and Montevideo is therefore a small city. But it has a really strong like literary history. So I always grew up, whether it's with my abuelo or with my mom or with my father, with a lot of reading and a lot of like the history of that sort of writing as like a political act and as an act of like engaging with the country. Especially because Uruguay is so small, someone's voice is really big, you know? And so you think about these famous writers like Eduardo Galeano, who wrote Open Veins of Latin America, and a lot of these really famous books that are read to kind of talk about dictatorships and the way that the state affects its citizens. And that to me has always felt like kind of in my DNA, whereas Springfield is a suburb of DC, and so it's very much within proximity of being a capital as well, similar to Montevideo, which is also a capital of a country. And so I feel like both of those places live in this weird balance of always having something to do with the public and with the private. And separately, it's just kind of been an interesting experience to always feel like you don't necessarily belong in either place, which I think is really, really quite normal for people who are bicultural, but at the time when I was growing up felt really strange. So it's definitely really interesting because I think a writer needs to be able to be part of a group and also observe it. And I think that being from two places and being bicultural really serves that, because you're always kind of thinking about what is Montevideo like as someone who grew up in an Uruguayan family, and what is Springfield like as someone who felt like an outsider but also grew up there. And I think those two things really play into what it is to write.
That's beautiful. Derecho has this amazing, powerful theatrical structure where some of the characters experience multiple realities colliding in a given moment. What's your inspiration for exploring and theatricalizing this sensation?
I mean, there's a lot of things. I think that I tend to experience life usually in like a lot more colors than it's usually happening right in front of me. Like I have a very vivid subconscious life. which often has always taken place in forms of poetry. So I feel like any moment that I personally experience has that kind of layered reality and this layered sense of like, okay, I'm making a choice now, which is reflective of my choices before. I think I'm generally a somewhat indecisive person, and take a long time to make decisions because I always feel the weight of options and also the weight of the options that existed previously. So I think a big part of it is that, like, my own personal way of perceiving the world. But also I think a big part of it is, I think the American theater in particular is very much a place where we allow for almost these weird interruptions in reality because of our history with musical theater. I'm not writing a musical, just to be clear, it's not a musical, but I do think there is an experience on some level that mirrors that kind of spontaneity of like confessional truth telling that also moves the story forward, and also like this moment of the reality that feels more linear and plotty.
What made you choose to bring Derecho here for development? What about the festival drew you?
Well, I mean, I moved to the Bay Area in 2015, and honestly, one of my first interactions as a playwright was with Amy Mueller, because when I moved there, it was late June, early July, and so the festival was actually happening. It was one of the first times that I had kind of a really clear idea of like, oh, there's this lifeblood that exists within the Bay Area that is very much about developing work and giving space to playwrights. And as time went on, my relationship with the Bay Area Playwrights Festival deepened, and I was able to kind of see not just like the festival itself as like plays that were being developed, and I would just go as an audience member, but get an inside look on how the plays changed, how the playwrights existed within the ecosystem of the festival and with each other. And partially because of that intimate look and because of being a local playwright, I always felt really excited about everything that was going on with the Bay Area Playwrights Festival. And of course, all of those plays and the legacy of the festival itself in helping writers find their voice and prioritizing them and putting them at the center of process. And over time, helping launch those plays and those playwrights to have lives beyond the festival.
Well, thank you for spending this time with us together, and I look forward to seeing viewers of this interview at Derecho during the festival. Thank you so much.